Alien mother begs, "She's only 5, take me instead." But then a human intervenes. The sky above the colony world of Lethara 9 was always gray. Not the gray of storms or night, but a dull, endless gray that never changed. The locals said it had once been blue, long before the Galactic Compliance Authority arrived. Now, even the sky seemed tired. The central plaza was crowded, but no one spoke. Thousands of alien citizens stood in tight lines, their heads lowered, their bodies stiff with fear. Tall black pillars surrounded the open square, each one humming softly with cold energy. At the center stood the tribunal platform, smooth and silver, floating slightly above the ground. This was where debts were paid. This was where mercy went to die. On the platform, 3 tribunal overseers watched silently. They were tall, thin beings with pale skin and glowing eyes. Their faces never changed. They did not frown. They did not smile. They did not care. A metallic voice echoed across the plaza. Case designation, Lethara 9, Sector 17. Genetic resource levy confirmed. A small figure stood alone on the platform. She was very small. The child could not have been more than 5 years old. Her skin shimmered faintly with soft colors, shifting gently as she breathed. Large eyes blinked slowly as she looked around, confused and scared. She clutched a small fabric toy in her hands, holding it close to her chest. She did not understand why she was there. Behind the platform, restrained by energy bands, her mother screamed, "Please, please listen to me." The alien woman struggled against the restraints, her voice cracking with panic. Her body shook as she reached toward the child. "She is only 5, the mother cried. "She doesn't even know what you want from her. Take me instead. I beg you, I will go. I will serve. I will die if you ask it. Just let her go." Her words echoed across the silent plaza. No one moved. The overseers did not react. The metallic voice responded calmly, without emotion. Appeal denied. Genetic value of the child exceeds that of the adult. Emotional distress noted and discarded. The mother let out a broken sound, half scream, half sob. "No, she is my daughter. She needs me." The child turned her head at the sound of her mother's voice. Her eyes widened. "Ma," she said softly. That single word cut deeper than any blade. Several aliens in the crowd lowered their heads further. Some closed their eyes. Others trembled, but none dared move. They had seen this before. Always the same. Always powerless. At the far edge of the plaza, standing apart from the others, was a human. He wore no armor. No weapons were visible. His dark uniform was simple, marked only with a small silver emblem of Earth's diplomatic corps. His name was Elias Rowan, though no one here cared enough to ask. He was officially only an observer, a witness. That was all the tribunal allowed humans to be in compliance worlds. Elias stood with his hands behind his back, his face calm, but his jaw was tight. His brown eyes never left the child. He had seen war. He had seen destruction. But this was worse, because it was clean, orderly, legal. The metallic voice continued. "Extraction will begin." A pair of enforcers stepped forward. They were large mechanical beings, their movements smooth and precise. Cold instruments extended from their arms as they approached the child. The little girl took a step back. "Ma," she repeated, her voice trembling. The mother screamed again, her body straining against the restraints until the energy bands flared brighter. "Stop, please, take me." Her voice cracked completely. Tears streamed down her face, glowing softly as they fell. Elias felt his chest tighten. Around him, other observers from different species watched quietly. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked bored. No one intervened, because no one ever did. The Galactic Compliance Authority did not rule through cruelty. It ruled through rules. Through laws so complex and old that challenging them seemed impossible. That was their strength. The first enforcer reached for the child. And then, a calm human voice cut through the air. "Hold." It was not loud. It was not shouted, but it was clear. Every movement in the plaza froze. The enforcer paused, its arm inches from the child. The overseers turned their glowing eyes toward Elias for the first time. "Human observer," the metallic voice said. "You are not authorized to interfere." Elias stepped forward. "I'm not interfering," he said evenly. "I'm asking for clarification." A soft murmur moved through the crowd. No one asked questions during extraction. No one dared. The overseer studied him. "Clarification granted," the voice replied. "State your inquiry." Elias looked at the child, then at her mother, then back at the tribunal. "Under what authority," he asked, "are you classifying a minor as a collectible resource?" The plaza fell completely silent. The overseers paused, just for a fraction of a second, but Elias noticed. "Under Compliance Statute 88A," the voice replied. "All genetically valuable entities are subject to levy regardless of age." Elias nodded slowly. "And parental protection." "Not recognized under compliance law." Elias inhaled. That was the moment. The moment humanity always waited for. He did not raise his voice. He did not threaten. He simply said, "It is recognized under ours." The overseer's eyes glowed brighter. "Human law does not apply here." Elias met their gaze. "It does when you sign the Interstellar Sapience Accords," he said calmly. Another pause. This one lasted longer. Several observers shifted uneasily. The name of that agreement was old, ancient by galactic standards. Many thought it was forgotten. "It was," Elias continued, his voice steady. "Article 7, subsection 3. Any recognized sapient species must provide protection to offspring until cognitive maturity. Violation allows external enforcement." The metallic voice replied, colder now. "That clause is obsolete." Elias shook his head. "No," he said. "It was never repealed. Humans made sure of that." The mother stared at him through tear-filled eyes, not fully understanding his words, but understanding his intent. The child looked at Elias, curiosity breaking through her fear. The overseers began rapid internal communication. Lights flickered along the platform as systems processed ancient data. Elias waited. He had waited years for moments like this. Moments when silence was louder than weapons. Finally, the voice spoke again. "Proceedings are temporarily suspended for review." A gasp spread through the crowd. Suspended. That word had not been spoken here in generations. The enforcers stepped back. The child was gently guided away from the platform, returned to her mother's arms. The restraints dropped. The mother fell to her knees, clutching her daughter tightly, sobbing in disbelief. "Thank you," she whispered over and over, not caring who heard. Elias exhaled slowly. This was only the beginning, because humanity did not forget laws. And it did not forgive systems that preyed on children. Above the gray sky of Lethara 9, something unseen had shifted, and the galaxy was about to remember what humans protected. The plaza of Lethara 9 had never been so quiet. Not the fearful silence from before, but a sharp, waiting silence. The kind that comes just before something important happens. The child clung to her mother, her small arms wrapped tight around her neck. The mother rocked gently back and forth, whispering soft words meant to calm them both. Her body still shook, but she did not let go. She was afraid that if she loosened her grip even a little, the tribunal would change its mind. On the floating platform, the overseers remained still. Light pulsed faintly along the silver surface as ancient systems searched through layers of old law and forgotten agreements. Elias Rowan stood alone before them. He did not move. He did not speak. Humans had learned long ago that silence could be a weapon too. Around the plaza, the crowd slowly lifted their heads. Some stared at Elias with confusion, others with hope, a few with fear, because hope was dangerous in compliance worlds. The metallic voice finally spoke again. "Human observer, you have delayed an authorized extraction." "Yes," Elias replied calmly, "I did. You claim authority under a dormant legal clause." "It's not dormant," Elias said. "It's ignored." The overseer's eyes glowed brighter. Explain. Elias nodded slightly. He had expected this. Humans learned early, he said, that laws only die when no one remembers them. We remember everything. A ripple moved through the observers. Several alien delegates exchanged uneasy looks. The metallic voice responded, "The clause you reference has not been enforced for over 600 cycles." "That's true," Elias agreed, "but enforcement was never time-limited." Silence again. The overseers processed this. Behind Elias, the mother watched him closely. She did not understand his words fully, but she understood his tone. He spoke as if he belonged here, as if he was not afraid. She tightened her hold on her child anyway. The child peeked over her mother's shoulder, her eyes following the human. She did not know why, but something about him made the air feel less heavy. One of the overseers shifted slightly. "Human law prioritizes offspring protection," the metallic voice said. "Other species do not share this value." Elias nodded. "That's correct," he said. "Which is why humans insisted it be written into shared law, not as a value, as a requirement." The overseers paused. "This tribunal governs through efficiency," the voice replied. "Emotional considerations reduce efficiency." Elias looked up at them. "So does rebellion," he said quietly. That got their attention. Several overseers turned their focus fully on him. "Clarify," the voice demanded. Elias gestured toward the crowd. "How many worlds like this one do you govern?" he asked. "Thousands." "And how many parents have stood where she stood?" he asked, pointing gently toward the mother. No answer. Elias continued. "You extract children, you extract workers, you extract resources, you call it balance. But every time you do, you plant something." The metallic voice responded coldly. "Fear ensures compliance." Elias shook his head. "No," he said, "fear creates patience, and patience creates planning." The plaza remained silent. The overseers did not like this line of thought. "You are implying instability," the voice said. "I'm stating history," Elias replied. "Human history." That word carried weight. Humans were new to the galaxy compared to others, but they had risen faster than expected, not through conquest, not through fear, through systems, through memory. Through refusal to accept certain things as normal. The metallic voice shifted tone slightly. "You suggest this tribunal revise its ruling." "I suggest," Elias said, "that you follow your own laws, all of them." Lights flickered along the platform. Internal review processes activated at higher levels. Somewhere far beyond Lethara 9, automated systems began checking old treaties, old clauses, old warnings. The mother felt something change. She could not explain it, but the pressure in the air eased slightly. The plaza did not feel like a cage anymore. The child yawned, exhaustion finally catching up with her fear. She rested her head on her mother's shoulder. The metallic voice spoke again. "Temporary suspension remains in effect." A low murmur spread through the crowd. Temporary was better than nothing. Elias nodded. "While you review," he said, "I'd like to submit additional context." "Proceed." "Humans catalog," Elias explained, "every compliance action taken under this authority. We do not interfere, we do not resist." The overseers listened. "But," Elias continued, "we record, we analyze, we prepare." "For what?" the voice asked. "For the moment when someone asks us to explain why things are breaking," Elias replied. A long pause followed. Observers shifted nervously. "Your implication borders on threat," the voice said. Elias smiled faintly, not a happy smile. "No," he said, "it's a promise." The overseers processed this. Finally, the voice spoke again. "Human observer. Why does your species place such importance on juveniles not of your own kind?" Elias turned his head slightly, looking at the child again. "When humans were younger," he said slowly, "we believed strength was survival. We were wrong." He looked back at the tribunal. "Survival without protection is just waiting to end." The words hung in the air. Somewhere in the crowd, an alien elder lowered herself to the ground, trembling. Others followed, not in submission, in respect. The metallic voice hesitated. "This tribunal will escalate the review to higher authority." Elias nodded. "That's acceptable." "How long will the child remain exempt?" the voice asked. Elias did not hesitate. "Permanently," he said. The overseers did not respond immediately. Then, request noted. The platform lights dimmed slightly. The enforcers fully withdrew. The plaza exhaled as one. The mother collapsed to the ground, tears flowing freely now. She pressed her forehead to the stone, holding her child close. "We're safe," she whispered. "We're safe." The child did not fully understand, but she felt warmth instead of fear. She wrapped her arms around her mother and closed her eyes. Elias stepped back. He had done what he came to do here, for now. As he turned to leave, one of the alien observers called out softly, "Human." Elias stopped and turned. "Why now?" the alien asked. "Why after so long?" Elias thought for a moment. "Because," he said, "someone finally said please loud enough for the universe to hear." He walked away. Above the gray sky of Lethara 9, unseen systems continued their work. Clauses were waking. Precedents were aligning. And across the galaxy, old laws that had been ignored for centuries were about to become very real again. Because humanity had never stopped reading the fine print, the review did not stay quiet for long. What began as a temporary suspension on Lethara 9 moved through the Galactic Compliance Authority like a crack in glass. At first it was small, almost invisible, but cracks have a way of spreading. Deep within the authority's central systems, ancient legal archives were reopened. Dust-covered clauses lit up for the first time in centuries. Human signatures appeared again and again, stamped across forgotten agreements. The overseers did not like this. They had built their rule on stability, on the belief that no one would challenge laws that were old, complex, and unpleasant. Most species adapted. Some suffered. None resisted openly. Humans were different. On Lethara 9, the plaza had emptied, but the air still felt tense. The mother and her child had been escorted to a safe residential zone. It was small, simple, and closely monitored, but it was free. For now. The mother sat beside her sleeping daughter, watching her chest rise and fall. She brushed a hand gently over the child's head, afraid that if she stopped, everything would disappear. Outside the room, two compliance officials stood guard. They were not there to protect. They were there to watch. Elias Rowan knew this. He stood inside a secure diplomatic chamber, facing a projection of the tribunal overseers. Their images flickered slightly, distorted by distance and anger. "You have exceeded observer authority," the metallic voice said. Elias folded his hands calmly. "I followed procedure," he replied. "I cited valid law. The clause has caused disruption," the voice replied. "Yes," Elias said. "That's what justice does when it's been ignored." The overseer's eyes glowed brighter. "Your species is activating enforcement mechanisms." Elias nodded. That was always part of the agreement. Across the galaxy, systems were already reacting. Trade routes linked to compliance authority space began slowing. Navigation permissions were delayed. Data access requests returned errors. Nothing dramatic, nothing violent. Just inconvenient, very inconvenient. The compliance authority prided itself on efficiency. Humans were attacking that foundation quietly, legally, and everywhere at once. The metallic voice spoke again. "You risk destabilizing thousands of systems." Elias met their gaze. "You risk something worse," he said. "You risk losing legitimacy." That word carried weight. Legitimacy was the authority's shield. Without it, compliance became occupation. Occupation required force. Force created resistance. The overseers knew this. On Lethara 9, the effects were already visible. Other families began gathering in small groups. They whispered stories of lost children, of forced extractions, of rules that had never made sense. And now, for the first time, they whispered something else: human precedent. An elder alien approached a compliance clerk, trembling but determined. My grandson was taken under the same statute, she said, 2 cycles ago. The clerk froze. I want a review. Across the plaza, another voice joined in. My daughter, someone said. She was younger than this one, another, and my brother. The requests did not shout, they lined up. Compliance systems flagged them all. Elias watched reports scroll across his console. He said nothing. Humans had learned long ago that when systems start to crack, pushing too hard only made them shatter. Better to let pressure do the work. The overseers contacted higher authority. What they received in return was not support. It was concern. Human enforcement systems were ancient but deeply integrated. Pulling away from them would take time the authority did not have. Meanwhile, other species began asking questions. If humans could protect non-human children, what else could be challenged? The mother on Lethara 9 noticed the guards outside her room changing shifts more often. She noticed softer voices, less certainty. One guard even avoided looking at her. Her child woke up hungry. The mother smiled as she fed her, tears falling silently. Small, normal moments felt like miracles now. Elias received a priority message. The tribunal requested his presence again. This time the projection showed more overseers than before. Higher rank, older. Their voices carried less confidence. Human diplomat, the voice said. Your actions have triggered widespread legal review. That was the point, Elias replied. The authority proposes a compromise. Elias raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. The child will remain with her mother permanently. Elias did not respond immediately. And, he asked, the clause will be reinterpreted as local exception. Elias shook his head slowly. No, he said, that's not acceptable. The overseers bristled. This is a generous concession. It's not, Elias replied. Explain. Because this isn't about one child, Elias said. And it never was. The room fell silent. Elias leaned forward slightly. You can't put this back in the box, he said. You opened it. The overseers processed this. Human enforcement escalation will continue, the voice asked. Yes, Elias said. Until compliance is compliant. The irony was not lost on anyone. Silence stretched. Then something unexpected happened. One overseer dimmed its glow. Authority inquiry, it said quietly. If the clause stands, what is the human end goal? Elias considered the question. We want what every species claims to want, he said. A future, the overseers waited. One where children are not treated as currency, Elias finished. That word currency stung. The overseers exchanged data rapidly. Across the galaxy, sanctions continued to ripple. Not aggressive, not destructive, but relentless. On Lethara 9, compliance enforcers withdrew from several districts. Review boards replaced them. Families watched in disbelief. The mother held her child close as officials arrived, not to take, but to record testimony. Her voice shook as she spoke, but she spoke. For the first time, she was not afraid of being heard. Elias watched from a distance. He felt no triumph, only responsibility, because when humans stepped in, they did not do half measures. They remembered too well what happened when no one protected the smallest voices. High above, in neutral space, the Galactic Compliance Authority prepared a system-wide announcement. The clause would be acknowledged. Reviews would expand. The cost would be high. But the cost of resisting humans was higher. On Lethara 9, the gray sky remained unchanged, but the people beneath it walked a little straighter. And across the stars, the galaxy began to understand something important. Humans did not bring war. They brought consequences. The announcement traveled faster than any ship. Across thousands of systems, screens lit up. Terminals paused. Officials stopped mid-task as a single message appeared, marked with the seal of the Galactic Compliance Authority. It had been centuries since that seal carried uncertainty. By formal review, the message read, Article 7 of the Interstellar Sapience Accords is hereby reaffirmed. Juvenile protection until cognitive maturity is mandatory. Enforcement is immediate. The galaxy went quiet. Then it began to change. On Lethara 9, the gray sky was the same as always, but the streets below felt different. People stepped outside their homes slowly, as if afraid the world might snap back into place if they moved too fast. Compliance banners were removed from the plaza. The tribunal platform powered down. For the first time in generations, the square was empty. The mother walked across the stone floor holding her daughter's hand. The child looked around with wide eyes, curious instead of afraid. "Ma," she asked softly, "are they gone?" The mother knelt and pulled her close. "Yes," she whispered, "they are gone, not forever, but enough." Elias Rowan watched from the edge of the plaza. His work here was finished. Officially, he wore the same simple uniform, still unarmed. He had not raised his voice. He had not fired a shot, and yet entire systems were rewriting themselves. A local administrator approached him, nervous but respectful. "Human," the alien said, bowing slightly. "The people wish to thank you." Elias shook his head. "They don't owe me anything," he replied. "But you changed everything," the administrator said. Elias looked around at the plaza. "No," he said quietly, "they did. I just reminded the system what it agreed to." Across the galaxy, similar scenes unfolded. Families stepped forward to file reviews. Children returned home. Records were opened. Apologies, rare and awkward, were issued by officials who had never needed to say such words before. Some systems resisted. Those systems learned quickly. Human enforcement did not shout. It did not threaten. It simply stopped cooperating. Trade slowed. Data access closed. Navigation permissions expired. Nothing dramatic, just enough. In the chambers of the Galactic Compliance Authority, overseers gathered in silence. Their glow was dimmer now, less certain. They had governed through inevitability. Humans had introduced choice. One overseer spoke. "The precedent is spreading." Another replied, "It cannot be undone." A third said nothing at all. They understood the truth now. Humans did not need to control the galaxy. They only needed to be involved. On Lethara 9, the mother prepared to leave the residential zone. She and her daughter were being relocated to a safer district, one with schools and open markets. Before departing, she asked to see the human one last time. Elias met her near the transport gate. She bowed deeply. "I have no words," she said. "You saved my child." Elias knelt so he was eye level with the girl. "You saved her," he said gently. "I just helped." The child studied him carefully. "Are you going away?" she asked. "Yes," Elias said. She thought for a moment, then reached out and placed her small fabric toy in his hand. "For you," she said, "so you remember me." Elias swallowed. "I won't forget," he said softly. As the transport lifted away, Elias stood alone. He felt no pride, only relief. And a familiar weight, because humans remembered what came next. Elsewhere in a distant system, an official hesitated before approving a juvenile extraction. They stopped. They reviewed the clause. They denied the request. In another system, a compliance officer quietly closed a case they would once have approved without thought. On 1,000 worlds, small choices began to shift, not because humans were watching, but because now everyone knew they might be. Elias returned to his ship. As it moved into jump space, a final message arrived from Earth. "Precedent acknowledged," it read. "Status, Guardian Clause active." Elias allowed himself a small smile. Guardian, that word mattered. Humans had not set out to rule. They had set out to draw a line. And once drawn, they would not let it fade. Back on Lethara 9, the mother tucked her daughter into bed in their new home. Real light came through the window, not gray, not dull. The child yawned. "Ma," she asked, half asleep, "will they come back?" The mother kissed her forehead. "No," she said, "because someone stronger said no." The child smiled and drifted off. Above the world, compliance satellites adjusted their orbits. Their directives updated. Their priorities changed. For the first time, child was not listed as a resource. It was listed as protected. Far beyond, among the stars, stories began to spread, not of human weapons, not of human fleets, but of a species that stepped forward when others looked away, a species that remembered its own pain and refused to pass it on. And so the galaxy learned something simple and something dangerous, that humans did not protect children because they were human. They protected them because they were small, because they could not fight back. Because once, long ago, no one had protected humanity's children either, and humanity had decided never again.